can I tell you what I want to talk about today?
Yep.
I want to talk about you as a business owner, and by you, I mean obviously you, Peter, but anyone else that's listening.
Yep.
As you're building a business, as you are giving your blood, sweat, and tears to something, how do you decide where your loyalty should lie? Because that is, and that is not a static conversation either, right? It's a dynamic conversation. It changes.
It changes regularly.
5 years ago, in your scenario, 5 years ago, it was absolutely entirely all in and 100% justified.
Yep.
But it's dynamic, right? And just because they did doesn't mean you do. So that's something, because I think so many agents spend their whole career laying down loyalty where it's not appreciated. Like they would have been better served to have moved quicker than other things moved them along. And your scenario is obviously very specific, like microcosm, but it's not unique. It's like it happens. It's happening all over the place, and it's more and more common.
Yeah.
So I think that's something we could talk about, is like, how does an agent, and it could be your loyalty to a company, your carrier. It could be loyalty to the lead company you're buying from. It could be loyalty to the CRM you subscribe to. It could be loyalty to the Facebook groups you participate in, like whatever it may be. I think the larger conversation is understanding the nature of loyalty and how to allocate the loyalty that you have, because I think loyalty is an asset, and every asset is limited. Like, you have your cap. It's just like a dollar. There's only 100 pennies in a dollar.
Yeah. I think that it comes down to you pour into who pours into you, people that are willing to invest in you. I'm willing to invest back in them exponentially.
They're willing to invest in me. I'm willing to be invested in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really, for me, it is kind of that simple on the surface level. It's like, hey, I want to take care of the people that take care of me, or that take care of my family, or that take care of my friends, or yeah. And that was one of the things that I was super fortunate. Not only did I get one of those, I had two of those. Most agents don't even have one person who honestly really gives a shit about them when they're starting their business.
Right.
There's a lot of times there's ulterior motives. There's, people bring people into the business for the right reasons, but sometimes for the not right reasons. Sometimes it's because it's what's right for the person that's doing the recruiting, not necessarily for the recruited. But man, I absolutely was the outlier in that. Like, Cliff, that brought me into the business, like, I couldn't have paid for a better mentor than him ever. And then when Cliff retired after a small stint on the island of misfit toys, I ended up in Bruce's agency, and same thing. Was like, holy cow, like I got it right twice, by dumb luck the first time, perseverance and grit the second time, because that didn't happen on its own. Like, I made that happen. But there's agents out there that never even get that once. I happened to get it twice, which was outstanding. Like, that being said, like, I would do anything for either of those two guys.
So let me ask you this, because let's break that down, because we see a lot. We see hundreds, we see thousands of agents that they don't have that.
Yep.
But they do have loyalty, but their loyalty is like, oh, well, I am being poured into, right? I was brought into this business and given this opportunity, and I'm invited to every freaking rah-rah meeting there is. And to them, that's what being poured into looks like. And so what I think, like, if the baseline is be loyal to those that are pouring into you, let's establish what is pouring in, because in my mind, being recruited in the business is not worth being loyal to. Like, every freaking buddy and their dog has been recruited into the business. Like, good heavens, it's rampant. It's absolutely rampant. Like, it's being an insurance agent is not an opportunity. Everybody, like 1 out of 3 Americans has got an insurance license at some point in their life.
Yep.
That's stupid, right? 1 out of 3. So it's not an opportunity. The opportunity is to be poured into. Being invited to the training, in my opinion, that is not being poured into There's something else. And so I'd like to ask you that, like based on your experience between Cliff and Bruce and all the other things, what does like if an agent was looking at their career and they're like, am I actually being poured into? Is where I'm at worth my loyalty? Because my loyalty is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. It's worth my family's effective outcome. It's worth, did we have a good Christmas or not? It's worth like, do I get divorced over fighting over money or not? Do I achieve all my hopes and goals and dreams? Like that's the price of loyalty, right? So what does being poured into actually look like? What did it look like for you?
So I would say that, first of all, it's kind of like your kids, right? Like it's discipline isn't something you do to your kids, it's something you do for them.
It's something I do too. So I beat they ass.
Also, maybe also do to them. But like, I think one of the things that stuck out in my mind, and it was something I didn't learn about until after I was already an agent and up and running and doing my stuff, was Cliff and Bruce interview people all the time. And most people they don't hire. They're really selective about the people they bring into the business because it's not just about numbers for them. It's about the people. And they understand that when you disrupt somebody's life like that, because that's what it is, you take somebody that's doing whatever, they're a pipe fitter or a swimming instructor, whatever, and they're going to come stop that thing and come be in our industry. That's a major disruption, and they never just took everybody. It was like Cliff brought in after me 3 additional agents. I mentored all 3 of them. 2 out of the 3 didn't stick. Third one stuck. But that was over 6 years. Cliff brought in 3 agents over 6 years because it was not a fog and mirror test. It was like, hey, is this the right thing? This the right opportunity for you and your family? I mean, when I went through my interview process, I had to go through 9 interviews, and I had to bring Cassandra along to one of them because if I was married to a crazy person, he knew that he was never going to get 100% out of me. So step 1 is like before I was even on the team,
Yeah.
they were selective about who they brought in and who they didn't, not because they didn't think the person couldn't sell insurance, but because they were like, I just don't think this is the right fit for this person at this time.
So when you're interviewing with somebody and they're like, man, 9 out of 10 people I talk to join this business because it's so freaking great. That's a red flag.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
If you were in that scenario, and I'll let you keep going, but if you were in that scenario and if you had asked Cliff, like, hey, how many people actually like come on with you when you talk to me? He's like, 9 out of 10. This thing's great. Knowing not what you knew then, because hindsight's 2020.
What I know now.
You might have gotten hyped up and been like, okay, well, I'm part of the 90%, right? But what you know now, if you were to hear that, what would your pivot or response be? Would you just give up on insurance altogether, or like, what's the pivot? Where do you go to?
No, I would ask some other questions. I would ask, well, when people do come on, how long do they stay? And when they do come on, what kind of opportunity are they seeing in real life? Like, and I would ask to talk to some of those people, and I kind of did that. So when I was in the interview process still, like Cliff asked me to reach out to my now really good friend, Lars, and Lars ended up being my mentor agent. And he's like, hey, when you get some time this week, I want you to call and talk to Lars and ask him whatever you want to ask him. All right. Ask him any questions you want to ask him. And Cliff was always super transparent. Ask him about the good, the bad. What do you struggle with? What do you not struggle with? Just kind of ask a bunch of questions like, okay. So I did that. I asked Lars all sorts of questions, but I also reached out to my father-in-law, happened to be insured with that company too. And so I asked him if I could talk to his agent, who was not Lars, somebody that was not in Cliff's agency. He's like, yeah, sure. So he gives me the guy's number. And so I call and talk to Lars, and it is in typical Lars fashion. Lars is pretty positive person. He's like, oh yeah, it's awesome. You couldn't pay for a better mentor than Cliff. He's fantastic. He's amazing. You have no idea what the opportunity is in front of you right now. Blah, blah, blah. Right. But it's all sunshine and rainbows. I call this other guy Doug, and I'm like, hey, Doug, I'm Barry's son-in-law. I'm interviewing. to open an American National agency. And I was wondering if I could pick your brain. He's like, yeah, you know, man, it's not for everybody. It's really hard and you're probably going to fail out. And and he just polar opposite answers everything that Lars had said. Complete 180. Didn't matter if I asked him what color's the sky, he had a different answer. And so I came back to Cliff the day after talking to both those guys. And I said, hey man, I had a chance to talk to Lars. And he's like, oh, well, how'd that go? I said, well, actually, I also want to tell you, I spoke to another agent too. Let's talk to my father-in-law's agent, Doug. And he's like, and Cliff just got this great big shit-eating, like cat just caught the canary smile.
The
Well, he's like,
Cliff gives, by the way. I'm like, if you know Cliff, Cliff gives it.
he's like, well, how'd that go? And I was like, man, he had a different opinion on things than Lars did. And he just kind of chuckled. He's like, well, you know, Peter, I'd imagine he would. Without saying too much more, I would say if you could look at the production reports, you would also see some disparity between those two people. One person is at the top of the leaderboard and the other person is not. And that's all I'm going to say about that. You can probably guess which one's which. And like, oh, okay. All right. And so that was one of my personal goals when I did start my agency was I was never going to let Doug outproduce me ever on anything ever. Because
ever.
And Doug's a nice guy. I like Doug, but it was just a different mindset and mentality than how I operate, you know?
From this point forward, when you reference the story, can we refer to him, like, just for anonymity's sake, as Quail Man?
Yeah, we can do that.
I think those that know. And
Little patty mayonnaise.
anyways,
So what does pouring into you look like? So there was the initial pour in that I didn't know because I didn't know any better, right? But putting me through all those interviews at the time felt like an inconvenience. And oh my God, will you just make up your mind? But really, it was a kindness. It was, no, I want to make sure I'm thorough enough to make sure that if I'm going to pluck you out of your current situation, that I'm not going to make you go backwards.
well, dude, I think it's so appropriate. So, like Mark was telling us, the State Farm hiring process. I think State Farm has one of the best hiring processes out there. You can love or hate State Farm as a company; it doesn't matter. Their success rate for agents is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
But they are more stringent than I think almost anybody. It can take years to get through their interview process, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, we heard stories about agents that, well, not agents, prospective agents that basically like they moved, they packed up, they relocated and got there and then waited 9 months and ended up having to do something else. Cause that was Mark's thing was like, hey, if you rolled in thinking that you were going to show up and have a State Farm agency in the next 30 days, like you're going to starve because you're going to wait until they're ready to hire you and be done vetting you and make sure that it's the right fit for you and them.
so what's the difference between, an organization like that and an organization that invited you out to an event one night? They brought in some cool speakers. Everybody got real excited. There was some punch, some cookies, maybe some taquitos. And by the end of the night, you were contracted. Now you got to work on licensing. Like, what's the difference? And again, where should your loyalty lie? Because I'll be honest, I'm not going to sit here and say your loyalty should lie with the one that's going to take years to vet you. Like for most folks, that's not freaking true. The truth is usually somewhere in between, right? So I think there's lessons to be learned on both sides. Like velocity, sales velocity, revenue velocity is a big freaking deal. For an organization like State Farm, for example, their hiring process is so stringent that, like, okay, yeah, they have a really high success rate, but one or two market shifts and they could go extinct really fast with that as an SOP. On the flip side,
yeah, talk to the State Farm agents in California.
yeah, on the flip side, you got those that move so fast, they're bringing people in, and their success rate is 1%, 2%, 3%, 8%.
Well, it's the closing ratio numbers, right? It's like if you talk to any agent, like Cliff used to tell me all the time, it's like your closing ratio is too high because I'd have a 60% closing ratio on stuff. It's like, that's too high, Peter. That means you're not talking to enough people. And it was like, or maybe I'm just really good at closing stuff. And he's like, nah, that's not it. You're not talking. You're not talking to enough people. I can tell you after 50 years in business that's the case. And I mean, it's true. Like if you look at national averages, you're looking at like 35 is on the high end on closing. And if you're closing a lot more than that, then you're probably being too selective in who you're talking to, and you're cherry picking. And yeah, you're not getting a lot of no's, but you're also missing out on some yeses.
Yeah, most captives try to be 22 to 24, I think, is your adverse selection ratio.
Yep.
And then obviously if you're independent, you can compound, but you'll find compounding, your intersecting circles don't look like this, they look like this.
Yeah.
You know, they're stacked on each other because preferred business is preferred business.
Yep.
Right? But no, what else did the right opportunity? What else does being invested in look like to you back then and now? Having spent more than a decade in a place, having been invested in, and then having been dropped. Let me put it in the words of
Revested.
what? No, what was the little teenage gorilla that Rosie O'Donnell played in Tarzan? You know, I can't remember the name. You remember the gorilla?
I do.
What she said was, "You were dropped like a baby giraffe." Curb blah. Was it Tantar? I don't know. You're googling it. I can see this.
I am Cheetah.
There you go. Cheetah.
Turk is so Cheetah was the one from the TV show Tarzan. Turk.
I was gonna say Cheetah. You might as well call it Chastity or Charity. Sounds like a stripper name, but they couldn't put that in a kid's show. So Turk. But yeah, you drop like a baby giraffe. So in the place that you've been, you have been fully invested in, and then more recently, you've been dropped like a baby giraffe. Kerr plop. What does being invested in look like now? Because it looked like something else then. What does it look like now?
What do you mean?
As you sit here and having been freshly dropped out of the womb of a 14-foot tall vaginal height mammal, and you've hit the earth, probably in a sticker bush or something. It's Africa. And you're like, okay. And you gather yourself and you're looking around and you're like, okay, I know the metric is I'm going to go be loyal to what's investing in me. What are you looking for? Like as you look out at the horizon, what can you see on the horizon? It's out in the distance. You got to go chase it down. How do you know what direction to even go if what you're chasing is being invested in? Does that make any sense? I'm trying to stick with this baby giraffe.
Yeah.
So there you are, covered in amniotic fluid and
big blue tongue. So I think that it looks a lot like what Cassandra and I's relationship looked like when we first started dating.
Hot and heavy.
Not so much.
Takes my breath.
It was, we joke that it was love at first month, not love at first sight. So no, what I mean by that was I met Cassandra when I was older. I was 29 when we first started dating, and she was 27, and we both had adult lives that were already up and running and rolling.
From what I understand, you almost had a dually at that point.
Well, I already had a dually at that point,
but not this dually.
Not this dually. That's another conversation for it. Looked just like this one. It was an 88 and 786.
That's right. I recall.
So that was one of the selling points on the new dueling. Anyway, the thing being, we were both in a place where we were both self-sufficient and did not need each other. But things were better together than they were individually. They were better together than they were apart. And I think that that's what you're looking for with somebody, where your loyalties are going to lie, and you're going to find somebody to partner up with for whatever it is that the sum should be greater than the total of the parts, kind of a thing, right? Or however that saying goes. Like, it should be not 2 and 2 is 4, like 2 and 2 should be 5. 2 and 2 should be 6. That because we're partnered together and we bring different things to the table. It's like, man, this is mutually beneficial. That's where I would put my loyalties right now today. That's where I did put my loyalties right now today. It's, in everything that I do, I feel like I have that. I've got that with you with Rev. I've got that with Nate and Brad and Cam and you with the Kraken stuff. I've got that with Sharisa for my personal agency. I feel like it's all a good fit, because it's not just me pouring into the relationship, into the partnership. It comes from all angles. Everybody's equally as invested in my success as they are in their own.
So here's another, like, this is the other side of loyalty, right? Loyalty is like, okay, what are you going to do for me? And I align, and because that's kind of what we're talking about, being poured in. How and where do you decide how much you're going to give to a person or a place or a thing? How do you put guardrails on your own loyalty?
Yeah. It's not something's given, it's something's earned, I think that's where a lot of people go wrong with it.
What earns loyalty? Because there are parts of me that fully believe, Peter, I could get you to do heinous shit if I took you to Texas Day, Brazil once a week.
Possibly. No, it's reciprocity is a big part of it. We've all had those friends growing up that your parents are like, why are you friends with that person? Like, you go out of your way to do this and this and this and this and this, and that person never shows up for you. That's step number one for me, is like, show up for me. When I need you, be there. And that doesn't mean like, hey, if I call, I expect you to drop everything and answer the phone, right? That just means like within reason. Like, hey, if I need something, be there the way for me that I would be there for you. Reciprocity.
I think one of the hard things about that, one of the things I've struggled with the most is reciprocity can take some time. It can take some time to deliver, and then it can take time to recognize.
Yep.
What metrics do you use to be like, okay, well, it's being delivered, even though it hasn't shown up yet, it's being delivered. And then to recognize that delivery, like, okay, it happened. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that you might not tangibly measure, but when it happens, and like you said, sometimes it takes a while to recognize, again, like a relationship with your spouse. Like, I do stuff for Cassandra all the time that I'm sure she has no idea that I stopped and was intentional about that thing. But on the flip side of that, she does the same thing for me, and it's little seemingly insignificant acts of kindness, acts of love, acts of service.
Well, that's it. Like, I know Camille likes to feel needed. So what I like to do, make sure she has dirty laundry in the bin. She knows I'm such a builder.
You're such a builder.
She knows I like to feel needed. So what she likes to do is try to hang pictures and shit on the wall, but miss the mark and leave a hole in the drywall. So I got to go patch it and then get one right. And by the end of the day, we both feel wanted and needed. No, what I'm trying to highlight is I do feel a significance in my life when it's like, oh, Camille, I get to do this for you, right? I get to hang the picture for you.
Yeah.
But when it's incessantly like, oh, you broke the fucking drywall and I got to go fix it again so I can hang the picture. Now it's the same thing, but it's abusive to a point. And the same thing, like, I never put a load in the washer, or I get my clothes dirty and I leave them laying around and I just expect they get clean. And I'm like, babe, you gotta know this. There's this magic thing going on. All I have to do is wear my clothes. I go to bed, I wake up, they're clean.
Laundry fairy.
That's equally abusive in a way, like not recognizing,
Yeah.
But I think that's a trap we get caught in this business as well. It's like, oh, well, they did that for me, but they only did it for me because I forced them to do it. I can't really claim it as value they gave me when I forced them to do it, because they don't see it as value they gave me at this point. They see it as like the reason they're about to hand me divorce papers. Like, they're over it. So where do you draw the line between giving and getting value and abusing that?
Yeah. Again, I think it's reciprocity. And reciprocity doesn't mean one for one, right? It doesn't mean because I did this, I expect this.
Yeah.
Right? It means I did things for you because I wanted to, and then you did things for me because you wanted to.
Right. Reciprocity is not quid pro quo. It's,
yeah,
I give 100, you give 100, and even if you didn't give 100, I'm still giving 100, but I really appreciate your 100.
Yeah. 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 You might not have 100 to give. You might only have 50, but man, you're out there trying to give me 51. Wow. Great. Thank you. That was one of the things that my buddy Bob taught me was, so he was my drumline instructor and band director in high school, and, high school kid. And I said something that I was kind of talking smack on one of the parent volunteers, and Bob pulled me aside and was like, don't you ever shit on people that are helping you. Like, those people are out here volunteering to help give you a better experience, and you're going to out here and talk smack on them. Like, you can go sit down. And I took that to heart. Obviously, I'm talking about it 30 years later.
That's a lot of years.
Yeah. That happened like that. But no, it's, got to recognize when people are doing stuff to help you. Sometimes it's hard because, like you said, it's like, for the boys, it's, I come home and they're like, Harrison or Peter used the towel rack in the upstairs bathroom as a chin-up bar. And I had just remodeled the bathroom, like, I don't know, 6 months before when you guys came out. And I used like some big heavy duty anchors through the drywall for that towel rack. And so when he pulled it pulled great big chunks of drywall out. And, it was funny because he was nervous to tell me what he had done. And when I took him upstairs and told him, it's like, hey, it's okay. Like, you're not the first kid to do this. Like, for what it's worth, you're not my first kid to do this. You're not my first kid to do this in this house, on that wall, in this bathroom. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, Colin did the same thing like 12 years ago, dude.
But I'm going to tell you this. I can't see Colin being like,
bird. It's accurate.
oh, I love Peter. He's a great kid.
Yeah. But it was funny because he was like, it wasn't even a thought in his mind or Colin's mind, like when they broke the thing, that I was going to be able to fix it. And I was like, oh, Dad'll fix it. Not a big deal. I break stuff. He fixes it. Dad'll fix it. Like, and I did give both of them a little bit of the business on, like, hey, listen, dude, I will always help you, but man, I got enough of my own stuff going on without having to worry about fixing stuff because you're being a knucklehead. So maybe don't do chin-ups in the bathroom. Like, we have a whole ass chin-up bar out in the front room. Go ahead and go use that. Okay.
You ready for a pivot here, Peter?
Yep.
I'm not going to say you've had a bad day, but you've had a day that would have left most agents on the floor. I think your day probably wasn't bad because you have mentally and intangibly prepared yourself to be successful no matter what happens.
Yep.
Most agents are not in that position. What advice? So there's hundreds of agents that sat through the same call you did today. Their world is torn apart. Like, they're currently calling their attorneys, like, what does a bankruptcy cost? They're putting in job applications on LinkedIn and Indeed. They're not in the same position you are.
Yep.
Today was not a good day for the company I'll represent as a field distribution unit. It sucks. It happens. Like, no shade on the company, like, shit happens, but it wasn't a good day. But it's not unique to that company. It happens. Dude, you've been in this business long enough. I have. Every 3-6 months, we hear about one company or another doing something, and it just floors. It takes the entire foundation out from underneath hundreds and thousands of people.
Yep.
You've laid your loyalty. You've decided where to build a foundation. You've decided where to plant your seed and build a life. How do you make sure that you are anti-fragile in that? Because you're in a position. I would say you are, of the hundreds of people that were on that call, 1,000 plus, somewhere in there, you're probably one of less than 50 to maybe 100 that are going to come out of that with, like, okay, cool. The handcuffs are off. Now I can just go all the way. The rest of them are like, holy fuck, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Like, that's it. What's the difference in between? And what advice would you give to not only those other people, but again, this isn't unique to that company. It's this happens. This happens. Yeah. And you almost have to expect for it to happen when you lay your loyalty in a singular place, which there's pros and cons to that.
So I think some of it, as much as I hate the word mindset, I think some of it comes back down to that. And it's not that I can just think this into positivity. It's that there is always opportunity in struggle. Always.
What's that?
Like,
The obstacle is the way.
yeah. Yeah.
Great.
So like if you think about like if you took it away from the insurance thing for a minute, like and you thought about the crash 2008, unfortunately, there's a bunch of people who lost a bunch of money, right? You know what though? There's also a bunch of people that made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And the difference between the two is not necessarily that you had a plan in place going into it, right? It was that when the chips were all laid in front of you at the table, you went, oh, okay. Yeah, this part sucks, but man, this part over here could be really cool. Like, so instead of focusing on the part that sucks, I'm going to go spend my energy on the part that's cool. You know, like we had a standing Thursday open office hours for the Kraken agents. And after that call was over today,
They all
a bunch of those agents, yeah, they all jumped on the call.
for the first time in how long?
Oh, yeah, it was the most well attended Thursday call we've had in a long time. But that was one of the things that I told him is like, hey, look, a couple things to take away from this. Like, number one, this is not how I would have chosen to get here, but this is where I wanted to be. You know, like as a captive agent, I, honest to goodness, did not realize that I did not own my book of business until I went through REV the first time, until I went through it was Rush time Pro. And I asked you a question, was like, hey man, so there's this module and you were talking about you could own your business and sell it as an exit lever. And you're like, other people can, you can't. Because you have this post-termination agreement as part of your contract. I was like, oh. And like from that moment in time forward, if you would have asked me if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about your agency, what would it be? I want to own my book. And I got that. I ended up getting it. I didn't get it the way that I thought that I would get it, you know, but I got it in an honest, ethical, moral way, right? Which was the company made wholesale changes to stuff. And it was like, oh, they were big, scary changes. But at the end of the big, scary changes, as long as you leaned into the opportunities over here and not, well, this sucks, and you leaned into the suck, then you end up on the right side of stuff when you come out, when you exit. And so today was another one of those calls where it was like, okay, well, not how I wanted to get there, but I was on like this independent hybrid captive thing. And now I'm going to be full independent, which means I can do everything. It's like, I was telling everybody on the call, it's like, I feel like the last 18 months, I've been trying to get stuff done with one arm tied behind my back. And now the handcuffs are off, the chains are off. It's like, you know, in the past 18 months, I helped build this really cool master agency while I was going through my personal book roll and doing all that stuff, helping do the REV stuff, had family stuff going on, like, and amongst all that, I still managed to qualify for MDRT under my own pen. Most of my friends that normally would qualify for that kind of thing, like that's not even on the radar for last year, you know? And I did that. I was able to get that level of production and achievement with one arm tied behind my back. Like, you guys are in trouble now. Now that there's no limitations, it's like, look out, you know? And that's the difference is everybody has stuff they have to work through. You know, when I was teaching the drum line, was like, we would have kids that would quit in the middle of the season. We would have days where we'd show up and they're like, hey, you're supposed to have the gym for practice. Like, hey, sorry, we rented the gym out. There's no gym tonight. There's no rehearsal space. There's no equipment. There's no whatever. It's like every group, every person has challenges and struggles and strife. The difference is how do you deal with it when it pops up? And the people that are successful are better at recognizing a landmine before they step on it, right? Like walking down the road and go, well, hold on. That doesn't look right. Let's go around this, or let's address this thing. And number two is when something does blow up, they're better at pivoting and getting back on track as quickly as possible.
So what do you do? Because there's like, we've been doing this REV thing long enough. I've come to know in my heart of hearts, we can cultivate premonition, like being able to see the landmine ahead of time to a degree.
Yep.
We can cultivate being able to deal with it once you stepped on it to a degree. But there are some people, in fact, the majority of people, we might be able to help them a little bit, but the needle we move forward and seeing it ahead of time and dealing with it afterwards, like, yeah, we move the needle forward, but it is so slight. And I'm not calling these people stupid, but I'm just simply saying, like, holy shit, Trevor. And I'm Trevor as a
Not actual Tyler, hypothetical Tyler.
hypothetical Tyler's.
Yeah.
Um,
Jensen at a restaurant. Kid, what's your name? Tyler.
fucking Tyler. No, it's just, what about those that struggle with that though? Because they're not worse people, and there's many of them that are really good agents. They just really, like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a little more powdered sugar. Maybe it's a little more whatever when it goes into the how did God make you? But it's like they struggle with the premonition or they struggle with the pivot. What about all the other people? Like, what can they do? What should they do? If you had come to know about yourself, if you're a self-aware human being and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna keep trying to look ahead, but I really suck at looking ahead. And I'm gonna keep trying to do good pivots, but I really suck at pivots. What would you say to those people? Because I think that group, even though I'm failing to define it very well, and I don't want to talk down to that. Like, they're great people and great agents in that group. What do they do?
I think they need to be honest with themselves about what their role is in the business. And what I mean by that is not everybody's a leader. Not everybody is built to be a manager. Not everybody's built to be a trainer. Not everybody's built to be a salesperson. You know, like when I hired my very first CSR, two things. The first thing was the reason I hired Beth was because I was at a regional training in Colorado and Nancy Alexander said something in the room full of people. She wasn't talking to me, but her words went right through me, which was, if you are a self-employed person and you don't have people working for you, you don't own a business, you own your job, right? It was like, oh, she's talking to me. I came home from that trip and hired my first CSR 10 days later, right? And most of that 10 days was me marketing and holding interviews. Like it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. The flip side of that though was I've got a really good buddy of mine that when I told him I was hiring my first CSR, and this guy owns a business on paper also, right? But he is a solopreneur. He doesn't have anybody working for him. He doesn't want employees. He's like, I don't want to deal with the headache. And so his comment to me was like, well, what happens if this person like steals all your clients, takes all your business? I'm like, well, I don't think that's going to happen because the person that I'm bringing in, like, I know them outside of work, and I've known them for a few years now, and that's not how this person's wired. It's like, but the other thing is like, if this person wanted to be an agency owner, they could be an agency owner. The same way that when I was teaching drums, if I wanted to be a band director, I could have chosen to go to school and been a band director. That's not what I wanted. I just wanted to teach drums. I didn't want to teach band. I didn't want to teach flute. I didn't want to teach clarinet. I didn't want to teach saxophone. I want to teach drums. And there are some people that they just want to be a CSR. Like, I just want to do service work. Okay. I take care of clients when they call in. There are people that are hunters. There are people that are gatherers. And there are people that just service work, you know? And being realistic with yourself on what you actually want and where you actually fit in the hierarchy of things is important. It's not an easy conversation to have with yourself, but you know, that's the whole thing with like insurance agencies are the same as any other small business, right? Like I talk to small business owners all the time. It's like, why did you get into business for yourself? And it's like, I wanted flexibility. I wanted to be my own boss. And if I was going to make money for someone, I might as well make money for me. Right? Okay. Well, just because you're really good at baking cookies doesn't mean that you'd be really good at owning a bakery, right? You're really good at small batch, niche, one-off, like I'm going to make a dozen cookies. I'm going to make 12 cookies. And they are going to be like just the coolest looking, best tasting cookies you've ever had. That's different doing that in your own home, in your kitchen, than buying a 20,000 square foot warehouse that you're going to turn into a commercial bakery and bake cookies for Walmart. It's a different thing. It's a different scale, different scope, different responsibilities. Like at that point, you're probably not baking cookies. You're hiring people to come in and bake the cookies. You're hiring people to do quality control. You're hiring people to manage the books. You're doing that. Like, there's all those other things that go along with being a business owner. People don't think
You're doing recipe adjustment because you had to update your vanilla supplier and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think for those people, I think sitting back and looking and going like, okay, yeah, you can sell some products. That's cool. But maybe what you need is a mentor. Maybe what you need is a coach. Maybe what you need is somebody else that's going to pour into you because you're going to pour into them.
I like it. I think, let me ask you this one final wrap up question as we wrap up here, because I think there's a lot of people, not only with your company, but with companies all over like all the damn time. Is there any less nobility in entrepreneurship versus entrepreneurship?
Nope.
Because I think so many people get hung up on that. It's an ego play. I want the ego of being an entrepreneur. And so I suffer when I could thrive as an entrepreneur.
No, not at all. The physical therapist that I'm going to go see today, who's fantastic. Like, he's been helping me with my shoulder the last couple months. Matt owned his own practice for like 30 years. He sold his practice and now he works for Athletico, like a major national chain, right? Why? Because he was ready to be done being an entrepreneur and just wanted to be an entrepreneur. He's like, I'm not done working. I'm not done helping people, but I'm done with all of the other headaches that go along with being a business owner, and that's okay. That's okay. It doesn't make him any less of a physical therapist because somebody else signs his checks now instead of him signing his own checks. You know what he doesn't have to worry about? He doesn't have to worry about marketing. He doesn't worry about overhead. He doesn't worry about staffing. He doesn't worry about cleaning. He doesn't worry about any of that stuff. Taxes, insurance, none of it. He gets to show up and do the parts of the business that he loves and then go home and leave the responsibilities at the door. The first CSR that I hired, that was one of the tough conversations we had. Was she was like, hey, I kind of feel bad. Should I put the agency email on my phone? I was like, oh, please don't do that. Please no. She's like, well, why not? I was like, because as the agency owner, that burden is mine. Like, if somebody, the sky is falling and somebody just absolutely is trying to get a hold of somebody from the office on the weekends or after hours or whatever, I'll own that. That's okay. You shouldn't have to. Like, I want you to be able to put on your wood insurance agency hat when you walk through the door and take it off and leave it on the coat rack when you leave and not think about it again until you come back.
So would you say, Peter, that the metric is the same when you're looking at a realignment? You may need to change companies. You may need to change contracts. You may need to change how you're looking at things altogether. Entrepreneur versus intrapreneur. Is the metric the same? Where is going to pour into me the most, the way that I need and want to be poured into? Or is it something else?
Same thing.
Jinx. Yeah, I think this is a good conversation. I hope people tune into this one. I'm going to send this one out personally. I'm going to send this one out. I can think of probably 20 or 30 people off the top of my head that really ought to go through this episode. So for anyone who watches this, I'd invite you to do the same. Share it with 10, 20, 30 people that you think would find some value in it, because nobody's trying to recruit you. I just hope to high hell that you land in the right place. That's it. So anything you want to end with?
I would say just keep an open mind that sometimes when you're going through some real stuff, like the first one is that sometimes what looks like a burden is a gift, and being able to take a breath and realize the difference between those two is worth its weight in gold. And then the other thing is, like, sometimes when you're right in the middle of those things, it seems super terrible, right? But it's one of those deals where I've never gone through something like that I didn't come out the other side in a better place than where I started.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good way to wrap it up here. But as always, love you, appreciate you. Thank you for being here, man.
You too, buddy.